We've got a lot to cover today. We have a limited amount of time. What you'll be hearing in this presentation is a very compact version of what's taking me literally 27, 28 years to learn. I've interviewed dozens of people, read thousands of pages of books, watched a number of documentaries, and still get new information every week on this topic of global warming from my confidential sources. This topic, as far as the U.S. government is concerned, is one of the most highly classified matters that the government deals with. Highly classified and highly compartmentalized. People will sometimes flippantly say, well, an organization like the federal government of the United States can't keep secrets. Well, I assure you that they can keep secrets. Absolutely they can. The example I use is the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was the project to build atomic weapons in World War II. Literally, tens of thousands of people, including my father and my grandfather, both worked on the Manhattan Project. Very few of those people had a clue what they were doing. My father and my grandfather were plumbers, and they worked down in Oak Ridge, Tennessee on the Manhattan Project. Yes, indeed, the government can keep secrets. And this matter of the truth behind global warming is one of the most important secrets that they have. The first thing I'll ask you this question. Would the federal government of the United States of America lie to you? That's the response I expect. Laughter. Of course they would. And they have for decades. Because of what I do and what I do professionally, I interact with people involved with law enforcement, including the FBI. I was working on a project with a couple of FBI agents, and we're having lunch one day. We'd gotten to know each other a little bit. And I thought, well, I'll ask this guy the question, what happened with John Kennedy when he was shot? Now, the man I was asking this was not just a run-of-the-mill FBI agent. He was a supervisory level FBI agent. Within a few years of retirement, he's now retired. And I kind of put him in a box because if he told everything he knew, he was jeopardizing his career and his pension. But if he said, John, the Warren report was exactly accurate, then I would know that he was a nutcase, because nobody believes the Warren report. So here was his answer. It was a very creative answer. This is from a supervisory level FBI agent regarding the Kennedy assassination. His answer was 2 words. Creative forensics. Now, that let me know that he knew. What every person who's looked at it carefully knows is that the Kennedy assassination was not what we've been told it is. A couple of personal things when it comes to secrets and how military intelligence knows about things before they happen. First week of May, 1967. I'm 19 years old. I'm in a military intelligence school, and I got assigned for a Sunday morning, what they call a dining room orderly. My assignment was to be in the officers' mess where they serve breakfast on Sunday morning, stand at parade rest, and whatever the colonels and the majors wanted, if they wanted coffee, I go get it. If they wanted toast, I go get it. Stand there at parade rest, eyes straight ahead, and just wait on the officers. One colonel is talking to another colonel. Now, this is military intelligence school, and these are field grade officers in military intelligence. First week of May, 1967. One colonel says to the other colonel, you know, those Golan Heights are going to break loose any day now. First week of May, 1967. What happened 4 weeks later? The Six-Day War. Yeah, they knew. They knew. Fast forward just a few months, September 1967. Now, I see some folks in here old enough to remember the Tet Offensive of 1968 in Vietnam, end of January 1968, which took place only 2 months after General Westmoreland gave his famous light at the end of the tunnel speech to a joint session of Congress, December 1967, where General Westmoreland told the joint session of Congress that Viet Cong were defeated on the battlefield, can no longer mount a credible offensive. I get to Vietnam in 1967 in September. By the end of September, I knew about the Tet Offensive at the end of January 1968. 4 months before it happened, 5 months before it happened. I knew about it, and I was getting ready for it. Everybody else found out the last week of January 1968. You better betcha, the people in military intelligence, they know about things before they happen. I know about things before they happen, even now, because I've maintained my contacts inside military intelligence. What you're going to learn today is known by the major world governments. I doubt the president of Zimbabwe knows what we're going to talk about, but the heads of England, Canada, United States, Russia, China, they all know, and they're making preparations. The Vatican knows, and I have some local connections there that I know about the Vatican and what they're doing. The Fortune 100 companies, they're getting ready and being prepared. My first-hand awareness began in year 2000. Two different men, friends of mine, they were both researchers. They approached me and they said, "John, there's this thing that's going to happen. We're not sure about the date, but it's going to happen. When it does, there's going to be abrupt climate change. There's going to be 200-mile-an-hour winds. There's going to be massive tidal winds." And I said, "Yeah, sure, give me a break, you know." But I knew these men well enough that I trusted what they told me, and I went to a confidential source and I said, "Check this out. I need to find out if this is true." And my confidential source, a friend of mine, he says, "Oh, John, you know, that's silly. That can't be real." But he trusted me and knew me well enough to check it out. He gets back with me a few weeks later, and he says, "John, it's exactly what you said it is. It's coming, it's going to hit us, it's going to hit us hard. And there's going to be 200-mile-an-hour winds, and there's going to be massive tidal waves and earthquakes and all the rest of all the things that you said." That was in the summer of 2000. Here we are 9 years later. Today being March the 29th, 2008. My research has continued. I've continued to develop my sources and put the whole thing together so I can make this presentation. I've got copies in the lobby that I'll make available for anybody that wants it. It's the Department of Defense study done by a private think tank about abrupt climate change. Now, the Department of Defense spent many thousands of dollars to have this private think tank put this paper together. And I've got a quote from this, and this, what I've got out here that you can get, is the open source unclassified version. The classified version I haven't been able to get my hands on. But here's the first paragraph of that paper by Peter Schwartz and Doug Randall. Recent research, however, suggests that there is a possibility that this gradual global warming could lead to a relatively abrupt slowing of the ocean's thermohaline conveyor, that's the Gulf Stream, ladies and gentlemen, which could lead to harsher winter conditions, sharply reduced soil moisture, and more intense winds in certain regions that currently provide a significant fraction of the world's food production. With inadequate preparation, the result could be a significant drop in the human carrying capacity of the Earth's environment. That means people are going to die. That's what that means. Has anybody seen the film The Day After Tomorrow? Anybody? Okay, a few. There's some science in there and some science fiction. If you haven't seen it, I would urge you to get a copy from the library, borrow a copy, whatever it takes. The opening scene is something, it's a dramatic interpretation of what really did happen, which was Larsen Ice Shelf B breaking away from the Antarctic continent. That really did happen. Very dramatic event. Now, some of the science in there is what will be happening in the future with abrupt climate change. The science fiction in that film is what's going to cause it. And the science fiction is human activity creating CO2 greenhouse gases. That's the science fiction. There's 3 characters in that movie. They're oceanographers, and they're on a little island off the coast of Scotland. And quite frankly, they could be anywhere because you can do this from your home if you've got internet access. There's buoys out there in the Atlantic that give 24-hour, 7-day-a-week readings of the ocean temperature. And anybody can do this anyplace. You don't need to be on a little island off the coast of Scotland. So they're sitting there watching the ocean temperatures off the coast of Scotland. And then there's a dramatic drop in temperature on one buoy, then another buoy, and so forth. And what they're watching is the North Atlantic thermohaline conveyor, which is also called the Gulf Stream. From my private sources, I know that in real life, not in Hollywood films, but in real life, PhD oceanographers, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, are actually doing that on both sides of the Atlantic, and they're very, very concerned. Just a couple of years ago, there was an announcement in November of 2005 that the Gulf Stream had slowed down by 30%. My private sources tell me it's been more than that. Now here's the deal. You look at a map of the world and you've got England, Ireland, and Scotland here, and you got Moscow here. They're both the same distance from the North Pole. They're both the same distance from the North Pole. England, Ireland, Scotland, and Moscow. What's the difference? I mean, they rarely see any serious snow in England, Ireland, and Scotland. They don't have furnaces like we do because it doesn't get to be 10 degrees. And they certainly don't have the winters of Moscow, even though they're the same distance from the North Pole. The reason they don't is the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is that ocean of warm water that comes up from the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, up the east coast of the United States, goes over and down past England, Ireland, and Scotland, past France, goes on south and makes a big circle. That's the Gulf Stream. That's what gives England, Ireland, and Scotland the very temperate, mild winters that they've always enjoyed. The best PhD oceanographers on the planet know that it's slowing down, and they know it's going to stop. There's some disagreement about when. And because there's some unknowns that they have to try to do some guesswork. But here's what makes the Gulf Stream work. It's the salt content. It's the salinity of the ocean. The salt content of the ocean allows that big engine to pump that water up, go over and come back down and do that big circle of thousands of miles. The salt content is changing because of melting freshwater ice in Greenland and melting freshwater ice in the Antarctic. Now the melting ice at the North Pole doesn't make any difference because that's floating salt water. So it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't change the sea levels, it doesn't change the salinity of the ocean. This fresh water being introduced into the ocean is reducing the salinity of the ocean. That's slowing down the Gulf Stream, and at some point it will stop. 3 years, 5 years, 20 years, I can't tell you when. And the best PhD oceanographers on the planet can't tell you when. They can tell you it's about to happen though. And of course, that brings abrupt climate change. What does that mean? Well, it means they have to turn their furnaces up a little bit higher in England, Ireland, Scotland. I wish it was that simple. When you're in the construction business, and I've been around the construction business, my family business was plumbing, you learn certain things. You learn certain things about infrastructure. You learn where the frost line is. You bury pipes below the frost line. And all the pipes in England are buried below what they call their frost line, which is probably 6 to 10 inches.